Professor Irshad Manji, an Islamic reformer, believes the Quran can be interpreted along more feminist lines.
The Quran is very, very clear that in the eyes of God, men and women have equal rights and equal responsibilities. The Prophet Muhammad's own beloved first wife, Khadija, was a wealthy, self-made entrepreneur.
All right, ABC, you've finally managed to tick me off. You just told millions of people that according to Islam, men and women have equal rights and responsibilities before Allah. And what evidence does Irshad Manji give? She says that Khadija was a wealthy, self-made entrepreneur. I wonder why Miss Manji failed to mention the fact that Khadija was a wealthy, self-made entrepreneur before Islam, before she married Muhammad, before Muhammad even began receiving revelations. In other words, if Khadija's social status is evidence of equality between men and women, it would be evidence of equality between men and women in pagan Mecca, before the rise of Islam. But ABC News doesn't tell us any of that. All we get is the misrepresentation. So, why would ABC tell us that men and women are equal in Islam? I suspect it's because they know most people don't have the resources or the time to carefully examine what we see on the news. But I do. Let's take a look at what Islam really teaches about men and women. Surah 434 is always a good place to start. Men are in charge of women. Why? Because Allah hath made the one of them to excel the other. By nature, men excel women. And because they spend of their property for the support of women. So good women are the obedient, guarding in secret that which Allah hath guarded. But what do you do if women get out of line? As for those from whom ye fear rebellion, admonish them, and banish them to beds apart, and scourge them. Then, if they obey you, seek not a way against them.
The Quran is very, very clear.
It certainly is, Miss Manji. So, men are in charge of women. They're superior to women, they excel women, and if women get out of line, men are commanded to beat them into submission. Sorry, ABC, but this doesn't sound like equality. Nor is there equality when it comes to how many marriage partners a person can have. Surah 4:3 says, "And if you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with the orphan girls, then marry other women of your choice, 2 or 3 or 4. Yes, you heard that correctly. Muslim men can marry up to 4 women. Can Muslim women marry up to 4 men? No. Is this what you call equality, ABC? We should also note that Muslim men can have more sexual partners than just their 4 wives. Muslim men get to have sex with their war captives and slave girls, those whom their right hands possess. Consider Surah 23, 1-6. The believers must eventually win through, those who humble themselves in their prayers, who avoid vain talk, who are active in deeds of charity, who abstain from sex, except with those joined to them in the marriage bond, or the captives whom their right hands possess, for in their case they are free from blame." What I find rather horrifying is that Muslims can have sex with their captives and slave girls, even if the captives and slave girls are married. Surah 4:24 declares that a Muslim man can't have sex with a married woman unless she's a captive or a slave girl. The verse reads, "Also forbidden are women already married, except those captives and slaves whom your right hands possess." Do Muslim women get to have sex with their captives and slaves? No. That's not equality. So, Muslim men get to have sex with up to 4 wives and as many sex slaves as they're able to capture or purchase. They also get to have sex with women in just about any way they can think of. The Quran discusses sexual positions in Surah 2, 2:23, which says, "Your wives are as a tilth unto you, so approach your tilth when or how ye will."
The Quran is very, very clear.
Let's look at a typical commentary on this verse. Tafsir Jalalain reads, Your women are a tillage for you. That is the place where you sow the seeds of your children. So come to your tillage, that is the specified place, the front part, in whichever way you wish, whether standing up, sitting down, lying down, from the front or the back. Do women get to demand sex in any position they see fit? No. That's not equality. So, things are certainly unequal in this life. What about the afterlife? In our video exposing the raisins myth, we saw that in paradise, Muslim men will receive a number of huris, large-breasted virgins who are made to be the ultimate sex slaves. Will women receive huris? No, they'll continue being the wives of Muslim men. The only difference is that in paradise, women will now have to share their husbands with specially designed sex machines called huris. Muslim women of the world, I ask you, how does it feel knowing that in paradise you'll be competing for the affections of your husband with a ton of women who are designed to be the ultimate sex partners? This is assuming, of course, that you actually make it to paradise. Muhammad said that most of the inhabitants of hell are women. The Prophet said, I saw the hellfire, and I had never seen such a horrible sight. I saw that most of the inhabitants were women. The people asked, Oh, Allah's apostle, why is it so? The Prophet said, because of their ungratefulness. It was asked whether they are ungrateful to Allah. The Prophet said, they are ungrateful to their companions of life, husbands, and ungrateful to good deeds. So, according to Muhammad, most of the inhabitants of hell are women. The women are in hell because they're ungrateful to their husbands and because they don't perform enough good deeds. But this means that women are less moral than men, according to Muhammad. They're also less intelligent. In Surah 2, 282, the Quran discusses contracts, and we find that the testimony of a woman is worth half the testimony of a man. It says, and get 2 witnesses out of your own men. And if there are not 2 men available, then a man and 2 women, such as you agree for witnesses, so that if one of them, one of the 2 women, errs, the other can remind her.
The Quran is very, very clear.
According to Muhammad, the reason women aren't as reliable as men is that they're stupid. The Prophet said, isn't the witness of a woman equal to half of that of a man? The women said, yes. He said, this is because of the deficiency of her mind. Let's read a final passage that combines the lack of intelligence and the lack of good morals aspects of women. Muhammad said, O womenfolk, you should give charity and ask much forgiveness, for I saw you in bulk amongst the dwellers of hell. A wise lady among them said, why is it, Messenger of Allah, that our folk are in bulk in hell? Upon this, the Holy Prophet observed, you curse too much and are ungrateful to your spouses. I have seen none lacking in common sense and failing in religion, but at the same time robbing the wisdom of the wise, besides you. Upon this, the woman remarked, what is wrong with our common sense and with our religion? He, the Holy Prophet, observed, your lack of common sense can be well judged from the fact that the evidence of 2 women is equal to 1 man. That is a proof of the lack of common sense. So, how exactly are women equal to men in Islam? They're not equal in intelligence or common sense. They're not equal in morality. They're not equal in the number of sexual partners they can have in this life or the afterlife. The value of their testimony isn't equal. Men are in charge of women. Men excel women. Men get to beat women. Men and women aren't equal at all in Islam. And we didn't even have time to get to the veil or muta, temporary marriage that amounts to no more than prostitution, or the Quran allowing sex with prepubescent girls, etc. So, why does ABC News continue to mislead millions of viewers, trying desperately to convince us that Islam is perfectly compatible with Western values? Stay tuned. I assure you, we will get to the bottom of this.
Individual Muslim men might be very loving towards their wives. My friend Nabil's parents had a beautiful relationship, and so do many other Muslim couples. But there's definitely a problem in the Muslim world. In 2009, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development released a report on gender equality and social institutions. They rated countries around the world based on the opportunities women have for education and employment, laws to protect women from physical violence, the percentage of women who are married and or divorced by age 16, and so on. And they found that 11 of the 12 countries with the highest levels of discrimination against women were Muslim-majority countries. A similar study in 2014, conducted by the World Economic Forum using their own criteria, concluded that 19 of the 20 worst countries in the world in terms of the gender gap between men and women were Muslim-majority countries. When you have a problem like this, you have to ask, why do so many Muslim countries have the same problem, namely high levels of discrimination against women? And what these countries have in common is their belief in the Quran. Let's look at 3 verses so we can see the source of the problem. Surah 2, verse 282 of the Quran is a long verse dealing with contracts, but there's an interesting part in the middle of the verse that says, "And get 2 witnesses out of your own men, and if there are not 2 men available, then a man and 2 women, such as you agree for witnesses, so that if one of them, one of the 2 women, errs, the other can remind her." The Quran says that if 2 men aren't available as witnesses, then get a man and 2 women. Here we find the Islamic principle that the testimony of a woman is worth half the testimony of a man. Why is this? Muhammad explains in Sahih al-Bukhari, where he says that the testimony of a woman is only half as reliable as a man's testimony because women are intellectually deficient. They're stupid. This view of the reliability of a woman's testimony has made it enormously difficult for Muslim women to testify against men in court. According to the New York Times, human rights workers have noted that as many as half of the women who report being raped in Pakistan are charged with adultery. Another disturbing verse is Surah 2, verse 223, where Allah tells Muslim men, "Your wives are a tilth for you, so go to your tilth when or how you will." We don't use the word tilth much nowadays. A tilth is a patch of ground that you plow so you can sow your seed. The Quran says that women are a tilth that you approach whenever and however you want. The historical background of this verse, according to Sunan Abu Dawud, is that when Muslims moved to Medina, they began marrying women from Medina, and the women of Medina didn't want to have sex in certain positions. One woman told her husband not to come near her if he wanted sex in these positions. She said, "Stay away from me if you want me to do that." The issue was brought to Muhammad, and Allah's response was Surah 2, verse 223. "She's your tilth, your field for sowing your seed. Plow her however you want." Notice the wife has no right to refuse her husband's sexual desires. Let's consider one more verse. Some women aren't as quick to obey their husbands as Allah and Muhammad demand, so what are Muslim men supposed to do about rebellious wives? Allah answers in Surah 4, verse 34. "Men are in charge of women, because Allah hath made the one of them to excel the other, and because they spend of their property for the support of women. So good women are obedient, guarding in secret that which Allah hath guarded. As for those from whom you fear rebellion, admonish them and banish them to beds apart, and scourge them. Then, if they obey you, seek not a way against them." If your wife doesn't obey you, you warn her, banish her to a separate bed, and beat her until she does what you say. A study by Human Rights Watch reports that more than 85% of Afghan women are victims of physical, sexual, or psychological violence or forced marriage, and that more than 60% are victims of multiple forms of violence. Why? Because of the Quran. According to Allah and Muhammad, women are stupid, they're the property of men and have to submit themselves fully to their husbands' sexual whims. Those who don't are to be beaten into submission. Numerous studies show the real-world impact of these teachings, and yet we're told by politicians, reporters, and Muslim groups that the discrimination against women in Muslim countries has nothing to do with Islam. But as long as people refuse to confront the actual problem, women in Muslim countries will continue to suffer. According to Surah 2, verse 282 of the Quran, the testimony of a woman is worth half the testimony of a man. Muhammad explains why in Sahih al-Bukhari 26:58. The Prophet said, "Isn't the witness of a woman equal to half of that of a man?" The women said, "Yes." He said, "This is because of the deficiency of her mind." The testimony of women is unreliable because women are stupid. Muhammad also claims that women are morally deficient. In Sahih al-Bukhari 1052, Muhammad says that most of the people in hell are women. He tells us why in Sahih Muslim 142. O women folk, you should give charity and ask much forgiveness, for I saw you in bulk amongst the dwellers of hell. A wise lady among them said, why is it, Messenger of Allah, that our folk are in bulk in hell? Upon this, the Holy Prophet observed, you curse too much and are ungrateful to your spouses. I have seen none lacking in common sense and failing in religion, but at the same time robbing the wisdom of the wise besides you. Since women are intellectually and morally inferior to men, they sometimes need to be disciplined. Allah tells Muslim men how to discipline their wives in Surah 4, verse 34 of the Quran. Men are in charge of women, because Allah hath made the one of them to excel the other, and because they spend of their property for the support of women. So good women are the obedient, guarding in secret that which Allah hath guarded. As for those from whom ye fear rebellion, admonish them and banish them to beds apart and scourge them. Then, if they obey you, seek not a way against them. In Sahih al-Bukhari 5825, Muhammad's child bride, Aisha, sees a woman whose husband had beaten her so severely her skin turned green. Aisha takes the woman to Muhammad and says, I have not seen any woman suffering as much as the believing women. Look, her skin is greener than her clothes. This is Aisha, the mother of the faithful, saying that Muslim women were being treated worse than pagan women. Why were Muslim women being treated worse? I suggest it has something to do with Allah's commands in here. And if you are expecting Muhammad to punish the man for beating his wife until her skin turned green, you don't understand Islam. Muhammad rebuked the woman for being a bad wife. Now, if that's how the Quran commands Muslims to treat their own wives, you can imagine what Allah and Muhammad have to say about non-Muslim women. Surah 23, verses 1 through 6, and Surah 70, verses 22 through 30, say that Muslims can have sex with female captives and slave girls. The Quran even allows Muslims to rape female captives who are married. In Surah 4, verse 24, Allah tells his followers, also prohibited are women already married, except those whom your right hands possess. Married women are prohibited, this is about sex, unless you possess them by capturing them in battle. The historical background of this verse is found in Sunan Abu Dawud, number 2150. The Apostle of Allah sent a military expedition to Autas on the occasion of the Battle of Hunain. They met their enemy and fought with them. They defeated them and took them captives. Some of the companions of the Apostle of Allah were reluctant to have intercourse with the female captives in the presence of their husbands who were unbelievers. So Allah, the Exalted, sent down the Quranic verse, and all married women are forbidden unto you, save those captives whom your right hands possess. That is to say, they are lawful for them when they complete their waiting period. Think about this. Muslims come up to Muhammad and say, we know we're allowed to have sex with our captives, but these women have husbands. Isn't that adultery, Muhammad? The answer is yes, but it's okay with Allah. So according to Islam, women are stupid and immoral, and you can beat them and rape them, even if they're married, and regardless of how young they are. This is the Islam you don't hear about on PBS or the BBC.